Hi everyone, thanks so much for joining us tonight and for you that are here promptly at 8 o'clock, and that's fantastic. We will crack on because we've got a lot of content to get through in half an hour. So the aim of these sessions is to provide bite-sized content for you to get better understand all the different consultancy skills that a Salesforce consultant can have. So thanks so much for joining us tonight. We've had nearly 500 people sign up for this week, which is absolutely fantastic. So it's really good to hear that the content that we're covering will be of value to you and you're interested in it. So please do ask any questions that you have towards the end of the session and we'll try and answer as many as we can. If we run out of time, we've also got the Facebook group. So please do collaborate in that, ask questions in that, and we can support you throughout the week if we don't get time to answer all those questions tonight. So once again, thank you very much for joining. Tonight we're focusing on an introduction to business analysis. Just to introduce myself, I'm Heather Black, CEO of Supermums. I've been a Salesforce consultant since 2012, and prior to that I was running a non-profit that helped young people to set up businesses and get job opportunities, and stumbled into using Salesforce for my non-profit. So for a couple of years I worked as the owner of that company, but also the Salesforce admin as well, and went through the path of training up as a Salesforce administrator, as an advanced app administrator, and also I did a consultancy skills course that Salesforce did at that point, and they no longer do. But I just really loved, how you could build a system to manage an organization and all of its KPIs, and fell into the Salesforce world from there. So in 2012, I decided that I wanted to go and help other nonprofits implement Salesforce. And that led me on a journey to change career, to transition, I suppose, what I had as business coaching skills, and lend those to what is very similar to business analysis in many ways. I'll talk about how those things cross over during the course of this week. But developed my skill set, had worked, as I say, as an internal admin managing my own system, but quickly found that when I started consulting with other non-profits and organizations, there was this whole raft of skills that I wasn't really quite sure what I was doing, in terms of how to document requirements, how to prioritize requirements when they had this massive wish list of 100 things and they wouldn't all fit into budget, how to manage people in workshops when they weren't quite as enthused as I hoped they would be, and that lent me to research what the different training was that I actually needed alongside the Salesforce certifications. And that led me to understand more about business analysis, agile project management, change management. And also I find that I use my business coaching skills, the NLP coaching skills that I learnt from my previous job, are very much within these implementations, because a lot of what we do as Salesforce professionals is manage people through a process, and it's way beyond just what the product can do. There's a whole set of disciplines, as I'm talking about here and talking about this week, that helps you better understand how to do a CRM implementation properly. So we're going to be unpacking all of that this week. This week is aimed at helping you understand what these different disciplines are, what they contain as disciplines, so you can better assess for you, is it something that I need to do? Do I have these skills already, or is it something that I feel like I need to train up in? Is it something that excites you? As a consultant, you can wear all of these hats. You can be the consultant on the product, as well as the BA, the project manager, and the change management practitioner. But equally, also in the Salesforce ecosystem, you can take on one of those roles. You could just be the BA, and other people pick up the project management and change management bits. So this week is really just about understanding what all those different disciplines and skills are, and for you to make that considered decision about whether it's something you feel that you want to train up in a little bit more. I think I found, I invested over 10 grand in my training initially. You don't have to spend that much. There's other training options, one of which I will talk about, that Supermums delivers. I found that when we were training up people at Supermums, that we give them the admin skills, but equally I feel a duty of care to also teach them in a range of the consultancy skills that we're talking about this week. So we launched the consultancy skills course that's now kindly sponsored by Capado, Own Backup and Slalom, to help us train up new professionals in business analysis, change management, agile project management, and really give them a handy pack of BA scripts, and I'll talk about a little bit more about that towards the end, to help get people to where they need to be a competent, confident consultant. So this week there is a workbook as well, and I think, you know, that workbook, and I will do some of the questions as part of the session today, is for you to appraise, like, where am I on this journey? How confident and competent do I feel? You know, you don't know what you don't know. So this week is really about giving you insight into what business analysis is, what change management is, what agile project management is, and for you to go, you know what, yeah, I'm brilliant at this. I do get it. Like, I'm confident in this. It's not a problem. Or it's about saying, actually, I didn't know that. Okay, let's sort of skill up in that, because it's an area that you need more support with. And I think the importance of these skills is paramount, in that as somebody that's run a consultancy for a number of years, so I started off as an independent consultant, developed these skills, and then grew a consultancy, managing a team of consultants. I've overseen over 700 projects now. And my experience from that was very much, if something was not done in a professional way, you would get complaints. If business analysis processes weren't followed, or agile project management wasn't followed, that's where problems occurred. It was the only time problems occurred and complaints were made. So if you get into a rhythm, you follow the disciplines that are set out in the marketplace for doing CRM implementations properly, you will come away with those 5 stars, you know, happy customers, great adopted implementations. That's where you kind of want to be, right? You know, that's where you want to have. You don't want to be you don't want to kind of see something go wrong, and that's where I've seen things go wrong if certain things aren't followed. So I'm really excited about sharing this content with you tonight, and helping you and answering questions. It's why I set up Supermums. I love what I do. I was lucky to get a golden hoodie from Salesforce that awarded me, I suppose, for all the work that I'm doing with Supermums. But me and the team, and I've got some of our team on here tonight, we're really passionate about helping people succeed in this space. So as I say, we will be answering questions all week. So fire them at us as we go. As part of the session tonight, I've also got some of our alumni and some guest speakers from Slalom coming on. We've got different people coming on each night, so it's not just me talking, but it's people to kind of give their inside perspective about, you know, what it's like using these skills and how it's helped them. So I'm going to kick off talking about what is business analysis. You know, what is it as a principle and as a discipline? So there's 4 key areas that I've pulled out here, which kind of explains it hopefully in a nutshell to you all. The first is understanding business priorities. Whenever we're building a Salesforce implementation, there should be a clear rationale for it, a clear business case, and there should be clear, tangible, smart goals or KPIs that would demonstrate the success of this project. When you look at Salesforce and they have trailblazer stories, it's always about, what does it help the business achieve? Has it helped them improve customer success? Has it helped improve efficiencies? Has it helped improve profit for the company? What is it that is what ultimately this product is going to help them achieve, and what is the return on investment? So whether it's a workflow that you're doing, or implementing Sales Cloud, or implementing multiple products, you want to be thinking, what is the business value that this is going to achieve? So it's very much looking at the big picture. And as a Salesforce professional, you want to be agreeing that with the customer, because if they're investing so much amount of money in this product implementation, they want to see the business benefit from it. So that's the first thing. That's the reason why business analysis exists. The second is to understand business processes. So it should be the norm that you map out business processes with any client or team that you are working with. You would use a process mapping tool or system to do that. So Lucidchart or Glyphy or Visio, for example. In an ideal world, you might do as is processes and as will be. processes so you can see the difference. And quite often that can be a way of calculating improvement in efficiencies, because you can look at how long it took people to do things in the old way of the world, and if they're implementing new technology, how long it will take them to do something with the new product in mind. So it's great to kind of see those two differences. So that should be best normal practice for any Salesforce consultant, is mapping out those business processes. The third is gathering requirements, and this should be about high level and low level requirements, but also functional and non-functional requirements. So I guess my first question is do you understand the differences between those things? Functional is more where you'd look at what the sales team are doing and map out their day-to-day business processes, and the functional requirements would be need to send an email or log an opportunity, whereas non-functional requirements are all the back-end kind of solutions, so around security, user profiles, password policies, all of those things that sit in the back end. And there's about a list of 20, 30 things that you need to look at for non-functional requirements, and we give out a list of those sorts of things in our consultancy course. But they're the sort of different things that you'd be documenting, and making sure that you're gathering requirements in a very consistent way, and that you are logging the business case for each requirement and the priority of each requirement, and who requested it. There's lots of things that you should think about for every single requirement and get a requirements log together. So that's the third element. The fourth element is then about proposing technology solutions. So with business analysis, and the best way to approach things is not always to tell the client what they should have, but to present scenarios to them and allow them to choose what solution might suit them. So a very simple option I give as an example here is, say, for example, a sales team wanted to be alerted to new leads coming into the system. My conversation with them will be, okay, in Salesforce, you have 3 ways of doing that. Which way is going to work best for your organization and the way that you work? You could, if a new lead comes in, you could have an email alert sent to somebody in the team. The second is that you could have tasks created to alert you. Or the third is you could have a dashboard that alerts you, or even a list view. That's 4. There's 4 different options. If you present those options to a team, they'll be like, oh, well, you know, task management is a organizational wide decision. Are they going to be using tasks or not? You know, it's a bigger question than just managing leads. You know, do they want emails? Or they might say, I get enough emails as it is, I don't want emails. Or is it actually they're going to use a dashboard every day and they're going to log in and look at the dashboard to know what leads to go to? It means they're not going to get any more emails. They won't use tasks, but they'll use a dashboard. So proposing technology solutions, I think a brilliant BA is somebody that can elicit what a client needs from a business point of view, but then can propose the scenarios that technology could offer them as part of that process mapping journey. And I think that's why sometimes in the Salesforce ecosystem, you get BAs that are not qualified Salesforce admins, and I think that's, you know, doesn't do them justice. I think a great BA in the Salesforce space has really good BA skills, and equally has a Salesforce knowledge in order to help inform them what the different technology options would be, so they can design their new processes with a very considered option about what you know, how they could advance themselves. So you want to be proposing technology solutions, you want to be giving them scenarios, helping them choose which are the best options for their organization. And you would then document all the technology solutions, and I'll talk about some of this as part of the documentation, but like having a workbook that has every field, every report, every email template, all the security requirements, all of that should be documented somewhere. So you've got a Bible of what is being agreed and what will be built out. And there should be a clear articulation of how much time that might take, which will allow them to understand what the return on investment will be. So if they spend 10 grand or £1 million on an implementation, they know the business benefit is going to be much wider than that. So they're the 4 kind of different things that you'll be looking at for what is business analysis. Now I'm going to go into why this is important, because when you teach something, there's going to be some of you sat there going, well, why would I do this? And this is always something you should teach as part of any course. So the problems that I've seen where business analysis isn't followed, and I will also share some international research that has been done. There's been plenty of research that shows a lack of business analysis causes problems beyond what I've seen personally. But the problem is if requirements are not gathered, where do you start and stop with what you've got to do? You've got no list of things that you've got to deliver for organisation. You might have gathered requirements, but they might not be prioritised with the client. So that then leads another problem, is that you might start working through the list of 100, but then they say, well, actually, I wanted these requirements and not these requirements. So then you're kind of stuck and saying, well, I've spent the 10 days of time that we had. And they're like, okay, but we still need this, this, and this. So prioritization of requirements is really important to make sure people are getting the most important things done first. And then the second is it's aligned to business goals. You need to make sure that the requirements that are being delivered and prioritized are aligned to their business goals that they had, that you identified during the business analysis stage. The second main problem here is no consistent, clear documentation. I've seen that over and over again, where we've personally walked into implementations where they've had Salesforce implemented for them already, and they've got no documentation about why it was done that way, why things, what was done. There's just no documentation. It's a pretty impossible job for the organization to figure things out, let alone another consultant walking into that situation and kind of unpacking it. So you should have a good process of making sure that you've got all the documentation, that you're handing that over to the client, that they have the list of requirements, how they prioritize them, what all the build was and what got included, and making sure that they've got that big picture, and so they can build from there on it. If these types of problems happen, the outcome will be that technology will not align to business need. And quite often that means that there's potentially an overspend on budget, because they might need to invest more than they originally anticipated because certain things didn't get done or were not done properly. And the result of having a system that doesn't meet business need is that the user adoption will be nil or low. I think one of the other things that can go wrong with business analysis is if people are not consulted in the organisation and they don't feel listened to, then they're not going to be brought into a system that doesn't meet their needs. So they're the sorts of problems that you will find. There's some great research here that shows the value of business analysis. And this research study, for those of you like sort of more depth and sort of quality research that sort of says why this is important, this research report is really good to look at. But overall, it says if there's consistent approach to gathering requirements and it's more consistent and competent in its approach, that you'll see an improvement in performance of these technology projects, a reduction in overruns. You'll also see that they deliver the functionality needed by the businesses rose just by over 75%. So some amazing stats here that shows actually if you do business analysis well and it's a consistent in your approach, that you'll just see an amazing sort of improvement in efficiencies and deliverables and time management. And so I feel that as Salesforce professionals that we should be adopting these best practice disciplines, because we want to do a great job, right? We want really happy clients that adopt Salesforce well, and are happy. At the end of the day, I always said to my customers, when I go into the very first meeting with them, I want them to be smiling when I walk away from this project. I want them to feel happier in their jobs, that it's making their life easier, that they're achieving their performance goals. That's what being a Salesforce professional is that everybody's happier because it's helping them get home earlier, or it's helping them hit their targets better, or it's reducing the admin, the bits they hate in their jobs. That's what our job's about as a Salesforce professional. So if you do business analysis really well, and you document everything and everything's squeaky clean, you've got the best chance of making sure that you're hitting those kind of key elements. So let's talk more about the approach of business analysis. Obviously, we're not digging into a lot of detail in a half-hour session. But the main thing is that these are all the things that you should be thinking about and would need to sort of learn about. So the first thing is the why of business analysis. You want to understand, why is the business doing this? What is the strategy for the business? So sometimes it feels a bit weird to be saying, well, I've come in to do your CRM, so can you tell me about your business strategy? And I've always used a term that I feel that we're sort of management consultants, not Salesforce consultants. Sometimes it is our responsibility to understand what the business strategy is for that organization for the next 3 years, and to ask those questions and to ask them to share their business plan, because what your role as a Salesforce professional is actually helping them build their business, making sure that the technology drives their business strategy and is helping them to achieve it. So don't feel weird about asking what their business strategy is and asking for a copy of it. Like, that is our job as a Salesforce professional. So start thinking of yourself as that management consultant. You want to understand what their key performance indicators are as an organization, because then you can build them all these lovely dashboards. But equally, you want to know what their KPIs are for the CRM system. Why is it that they're suddenly needing a new system? What is it they want it to achieve? So you've got 2 levels of KPIs to think about. You want to make sure that you've got a management team that are really bought into this. You want a centre of excellence to be established, and you want an exec sponsor who's your main point of contact. You want to create with that management team a very, very clear business case that stacks up, that then can be communicated to everybody in that organization. So everybody in that organization is really clear on, why are we doing this? Why do we need to get on board with it? And the exec sponsor needs to communicate that really clearly. And that's something that I talk about in the change management module on Thursday, or Wednesday, that is. And also the strategies is who are the different stakeholders, who needs to be involved? You know, are there volunteers? Are there customers? Are there partners? How many employees are there? So you need to understand the organization. You need to create a business canvas framework. You need to understand who all the stakeholders are and who you're then going to need to consult with during your elicitation. And that moves me on to elicitation. So the how do you do business analysis? Well, you want to do elicitation techniques with all these different stakeholder groups that have some involvement in the CRM system. So that might include interviews, shadowing, workshops, questionnaires, meetings, focus groups, document analysis. You need to come up with a very clear elicitation plan that is going to give you the information you need to understand how those customers or team members operate in their job, and to gather their requirements so you can then propose the solution. When you do all of this elicitation, you need to then describe what the what is. You need to put together all this documentation. So example documentation that I would normally see produced for CRM projects is a business canvas, a business case, a CRM strategy, process maps, technical audit, things like stakeholder context diagrams. There's lots of different diagrams and things that you get to learn as part of business analysis, ways of communicating back to people, because some people don't like reading lots of stuff, right? So you doing diagrams makes it easy for them to understand. So there's lots of different diagrams you can pull on. A requirements log, and that's documenting all the requirements, every workflow, every email, all those different things that need to be done and why, what the business case is for each of those things, so you can prioritize them. You would produce a technical workbook that details, you know, the thousands of fields that you're going to be building, because your dev team, your build team need the Bible to look at, to know what they're building. And there's also then things like the object entity diagram that explains all the different objects in Salesforce that you'll be using. And you've got training manuals and stuff comes later on, right? But all this documentation up front should be created to demonstrate the reasons of what was needed, what's going to be built, and presents it back to everybody, and then you produce the process maps and everything. So that's the sort of documentation you should be producing. And then you've got the when is this going to happen? How is it going to work? So for the functional requirements and for the non-functional requirements, you need to decide with the client, the team members you're working with, whether you're internal or external, you know, what's the prioritization, what's the time frame, what's the budget they've got available, how do they want to prioritize that budget, what's the resource that's available to make sure things can get delivered on time, and are there any dependencies? So that moves us into project management. We're covering project management tomorrow. So there's overlap between BA, project management, change management. That's why it's really good to have knowledge of all the areas, even if you specialize in one of these things. Knowing how to work simultaneously with those other disciplines is very important. But as a BA, you know, that prioritization spans into project management, because you will need to work with the project managers to make sure things get done on time to meet the business objectives. So that's the approach of business analysis. And when you do the do further training and in-depth training about business analysis, it really is understanding all this and how to sort of pull it together. And so the consultant skills and toolbox that I'd recommend for you is, you want strategic templates, you know, so do you have presentation templates to facilitate business workshops and document the business case? Do you have business analysis scripts? So do you have a ready-made set of questions to ask per project and type of solutions? That's something that we give to you on the consultancy skills course, is business analysis scripts for Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, Community Cloud, marketing, e-marketing, payment solutions. You know, for each of those products, what are all the list of questions that you need to ask? You know, that's what I found when I was teaching other consultants in my organization. It's like, where do you start and stop? How do you make sure that you don't miss anything? So, you know, you could produce your own lists, but make sure you've got a consistent set of questions to always ask people. In terms of requirements engineering, and that's the term used to document all your requirements, do you have a set of templates to document all those requirements, document your processes and the technical solutions? You know, these are things that you need in your toolbox. And then what systems and tools do you use to document and share all these documents with a client so they can collaborate on them? You know, you can go back and forth and agree things. You know, they're all the things that you'll need to think about to make sure that you're doing BA consistently and having the right things in place. So that's kind of an introduction to what you need to be thinking about with business analysis. I'd just like to do a quick poll with you all around your confidence level. So as you can see here, green, dark green is very confident and 5 is no confidence. This is a couple of questions out of the workbook. So I'm going to launch the poll and you can answer your questions. So the first one is, let me launch this for you. The first one is, how confident do you feel getting clients ready for technology projects and how to manage them if they aren't quite doing the preparation work they need to? So this is all about, are you giving clients the questions that they need to answer in advance so they can answer these questions? You've got obviously different levels of confidence here, so it'd be great to see how you're all feeling about this now. So low confidence or no confidence is, I have no idea what questions to be asking clients. Whereas dark green confidence level is, I know what questions to send them and on how to get information ready, and I'm comfortable coaching people that need more support. So we're getting a right mix on the poll here. It's really interesting to see. Thank you all for answering. So we've got fairly confidence coming out top with low confidence second. So they're the two that are bridging. And then the second question is, how confident do you feel preparing documentation for a project? Do you have a consistent approach to process mapping, document requirements and deliverables, and preparing user testing and training material? So that's the next poll. Again, we're getting a fairly confident, low confident levels on those at the moment. So this is really good to kind of gauge yourself. At Supermums, we're all about achieving goals. And we were talking about goals actually in our team meeting today, about achieving our goals for 2022. And so think about what it is that you want to do to get yourself more confident in the next, few months. What can you do to learn more? How can you move forward? Revisit the content again and go, where is it I need to focus my time and energy? So thank you all for participating in that poll. So just to explain our course, and then I'll hand over to Sherry-Ann and Gareth to speak. We'll probably go through to 22 on the session tonight. We have got that earmarked as possible overrun. So if you're interested in our consultancy skills course, we've got a 3-month course that starts on the 11th of January. This includes on-demand training for all the different topics that we've got listed here. And then we've got weekly coaching calls where we cover additional topics each week. And then also everybody gets a one-to-one coaching session. So I spent like 10 grand learning all of this with week-long intensive courses. Those are actually options for you. You know, you can obviously look at more in-depth courses than what we provide, but what I wanted to provide was a course that kind of covered all these topics with what I feel is, you know, enough information to get you to be able to deliver proficiently. So our prices are down here, and we're giving an early bird discount, but also what we provide is this pack of BA scripts and all the documentation templates that we've talked about tonight. And so the pack of BA scripts covers all the different questions that you might need to ask about their CRM strategy, about how to do a health check on an existing org, about how to do a risk analysis, and how to consult on all these different types of functional areas like Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, Community Cloud. And so I put these together because quite often I found that, you know, it's $1 million wish list in your head that you can forget or not. So, you know, you're welcome to obviously use our scripts if you join our course, but otherwise I'd highly recommend putting together your own if you haven't done already, to kind of get those things nailed down as part of your documentation. So that's our course. We also, for those of you that are based in the UK or based in England, we do run a free business analysis level 4 qualification as well. It's run slightly differently, and it's an 18-month program. It is in partnership. You have to be employed within a company because they will fund it through their apprenticeship levy. And you have to be working in a Salesforce related role. So it's much more in depth. It's about 8 hours of application a week where you're learning and being hands-on as a BA. So it can be on the job training technically, but this is the other way that Supermums can train you up, and we work in partnership with Learning Curve and Salesforce to deliver this qualification. So there's a couple of options on our website that you can check out to see if you meet that criteria. So I'm going to hand over to Sherry-Ann. Sherry-Ann, are you there? I'll see if I can.
Yes, I am.
If you can unmute yourself. Maybe you can just share your experience about being a non-profit database assistant and tell people a bit more about your journey and how being, you know, learning BA skills has helped you upskill.
Sure. So just a little bit of background.
Are you with us?
Can you hear me? Oh,
I can hear you.
okay.
Did you see her? Yeah, I saw her register. Maybe not.
Okay.
Well,
Well, it seems like everyone can hear me. Okay, I'm going to carry on then. So just a little bit of background. I was a teacher.
Rocky says I can hear Sherry-Ann. Oh, you can hear Sherry-Ann. Why can I not hear Sherry-Ann? No, that's weird, isn't it? Why can I not hear Sherry-Ann? Okay, well, Sherry-Ann, you can talk. I don't know why I can't hear you, but please do talk. Let me know when you've finished.
So I retrained in 2017. I did the Salesforce Supermums admin course, and I then got a role as a solo admin for a charity called Living Well. I worked there for about 6 months in the office, and then we moved to Durham. So I went remote and also joined another charity at the same time, international charity, which I'm currently with now as the database assistant / database manager at the moment, kind of juggling 2 roles. And since I'm juggling 2 roles, I decided to do the consultancy course to upskill. And wow, it's been a bit of information overload, but I've enjoyed every minute of it. I can highly recommend it. There is so much information that is just freely given from Heather's experience, and all the scripts, things that would take normally years to get, that she just freely gives, which is just amazing. It's been a real learning curve, and I've enjoyed every minute of it, and I feel a lot more confident in my juggling of 2 roles at the moment. So yeah, can highly recommend the course.
Hi, Sherry-Ann, I can hear you now. My settings weren't quite right. Sorry, so I can't quiz you on that. Has anybody got any questions for Sherry Ann? Because I hear what you said. No worries. Let us know if you've got any questions. Nathan, have we got you here?
Yep, yep, I'm here.
Awesome. Do you
I
want
can
to
go
share your
next.
experience?
Yeah, so I'll give a bit of background. First, if everyone can hear me all right. So yeah, my name's Nathan Brunt. I'm a senior consultant in the Salesforce practice at Salem. So I've got around 5 years of experience working within that sort of Salesforce ecosystem. I actually started out with a smaller consultancy, typically working on a few projects at any one point in time with sort of small and medium-sized companies up until I joined Slalom in around November 2019. So since then, I've been working on sort of the larger end, typically enterprise scale projects as a solution architect. That's typically entailed a variety of roles you'll likely hear about throughout this week. So a little bit on the business analysis side, a little bit on the project management piece, and also getting hands-on with Salesforce and supporting with some of the build as well. So naturally, I mean, when we get into a project of sort of that size, those BA skills are kind of at the forefront, particularly in those early days, as you kind of, as Heather was talking to there, running sort of various workshops across business streams, designing that sort of supplementary material around Salesforce data models or supporting documentation, and also playing these solutions back to the client. So whether that's, to business leads that are acting as sort of exec sponsors on the project, or, all the way up to the C-suite at times. At Salem, we typically use a broad range of tools to support on a Salesforce implementation. So some of these you might have heard of, some software offerings like Miro we've recently got onboarded with. So hosting workshops, it's kind of a good means of encouraging client participation. They can kind of jump onto a shared board and contribute sort of their thoughts and requirements. And that goes through to documenting solutions on platforms like Confluence. I think we mentioned Lucidchart earlier, and other tools like Draw.io and Visio to sort of build out those process maps and those visual workflows to help support with that sort of playback element. Typically, we use Jira for tracking of user stories and acceptance criteria. So to the point earlier raised about sort of prioritizing the workload, we'll build out user stories and acceptance criteria that would sort of form the main sort of to be followed through with the main life cycle of that project. So obviously, all those materials typically help to keep the project on track and make sure there aren't any surprises for anyone involved as the project progresses, both on our side and on the client side. Naturally, obviously, it's the course that not every project is perfectly captured from those early stages, but can have in those foundational tools and sort of a shared methodology to the project kind of ensures that when additional requirements do arise, we can work with the client to maintain sort of a manageable pipeline of work while we prioritize any new user stories. So determining through exercises such as Moscow categorizations, sort of what user stories are truly must-haves versus the nice-to-haves, do that aiming to keep the project on track to budget, and also to the client's expectations around timeline. So it was actually through Salem how I found out about the work that Supermums do. So a few of my colleagues and I act as mentors on the program. So on that basis, I started mentoring in November 2020 with that cohort through to around Easter this year. So it's a great way to get to know Salesforce and pick up a range of new skills. I'm sure there'll be plenty of documentation on what's involved. But typically what or the approach I took was we'd have a regular weekly catch-up of around an hour between myself and my mentee. And beyond that, we'd also review the work that she was completing as part of her weekly assignments. So those sessions were really good. We talked a bit more broadly about the Salesforce ecosystem, supported her with some additional resources online and by other means around sort of exam prep, but also just diving into Salesforce as the platform itself and talking to any issues she was having with any of the assignments that were set out to her. So I personally found it a very useful experience, improved on some of those sort of coaching skills, but also I think for the mentees, it's a great program and a bit of a refresher for myself in some of the areas of the platform that I would probably be fairly rusty on, as I hadn't touched on certain cloud offerings in quite a while. So yeah, that's a bit of background on me and hopefully a bit of a sense of what working as a consultant in the Salesforce sphere can seem like, and sort of some of the tools we use to build that out and make sure projects stay on track.
Thank you, Nathan. That was really useful, I think, just to give an inside look at all the different products and processes that you do at Salem. So thank you very much. And thank you very much for being a mentor on Supermums. I did see that as well when you got involved. So it's awesome to see that you're involved in those different ways. And anybody else listening in today, if you have 2 years Salesforce admin experience, we're always welcoming new volunteers to be mentors, and we train people who are mentors in. They can access the coaching skills course, not the consultancy skills one, but the coaching bit that we do of it. So yeah, always welcome to anybody else who wants to join that. So thank you, Nathan and Sherry-Ann, for just sharing your insight and expertise. That's really the wrap for tonight around the introduction to business analysis. I'd love to get your feedback. If you're in the Facebook group, that's probably the best place to post any comments or questions that you have. I can see that the team have been answering lots of questions in the chat tonight, so thank you very much to my team for doing that. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to do the introduction to Agile project management. So hopefully we'll see as many of you as possible. If you miss it, we will send out the videos anyway. So thanks very much for joining tonight, and we'll see you all very soon. Take care. Bye. Thanks, everyone.